What's poppin', world? Now back at it again. Tapped in with the Head of the Game podcast. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So this is my 90-day update. Was just about to go on 90 days. Not sure if my math working right, but I started truck driving. Well, truck driving orientation on the 20th of 2025 of October. And now today's date, I believe, is... One second, y'all. Give me 1 second. I believe it's the 18th, but just want to make sure for y'all, man. Yep, it's the 18th. All right, so let's get right into it. So, there are anomalies to this trucking industry thing, right? There's anomalies. There's people that have a great start. They hit the ground running. But speaking for the majority of people that start in this industry, 9 times out of 10, especially when you're inexperienced, you're going to have to go over the road. Now, there's different versions of going over the road. There's regional. There's 48 states. There's flatbed. Some people get into tankers. So many different sectors and divisions. Inside of this trucking thing is not a monolith. You feel me? Long story short, it's not just, oh, you're a truck driver. There's very, specifics, specifications, depending on what company you got into, what training you got, what city, what state you coming up out of, so on and so forth, right? So I can only speak from my first-hand experience. Now, there's a lot of second-hand experience, due to watching videos on YouTube and things of that nature. Just trying to see and measure up. Because, in this trucking industry, the number one thing that I feel like a lot of people feel like they need is connection, right? Only because you're disconnected, you're always on the move, the ground is always moving from up under your feet, and it doesn't feel like you're anywhere stationary, right? And you start to lose touch with your reality. So anyways, speaking of that experience that I have, right? Let me turn off the microwave. This is going to be all up in the video. All right, there we go. All right, made me some spaghetti, y'all. But anyways, this is the main things that I had to go through in the adjustment period I had to endure in order to get to where I'm at right now, right? So, not gonna expose or put out the company I'm working for right now just because hey, they can find this video and they can do something. You feel me? Maybe they can, maybe they won't, but but I'll give y'all a hint. It's a mega carrier, has a reputation of the best training in the game, and they have a program where they can fly you out. I got a rental car, so the orientation, and this is probably gonna be an hour-long video. So if you got your popcorn, you got your snacks, make sure you go ahead, you get that, because this is gonna be a very long video, right? So, first things first, let's take it all the way back to when I first got my CDL. I paid for my CDL, financed through a third-party CDL school, put $2,200 down. The entire tuition was like $4,000, something like that, $4,400. So I'll put the first $22 down, and they financed the back end, right? And they stretched that out for about 18 months. So y'all do the math on that. So the trucking school, this specific trucking school, the only reason why I chose it, and I advise anybody that's going into trucking to, you know what? This is freaking irritating. There we go. All right. Anybody that's going into trucking, I would advise this route. You can do what you want, but this what gave me the most leverage coming into this industry. Pay for your CDL up front. Yeah, there's Swift and Prime and Knight and so on and so forth, where they'll pay for your CDL, right? They'll pay for your well, you're still paying for your CDL. It's just they're gonna have you work for it. They're gonna train you in advance, and then you're gonna pay it off due to how much you're working for them, right? So, with that being said, it's a lot that goes into this industry. So, after I went into this truck driving school, I got my CDL in about 6 weeks. Now, the reason why I went to this specific one was because they were flexible. They had weekend classes, they had day classes, night classes, and you were able to pick up your hours well enough until you were able to take your test. So, those who don't know, you got your skills tests, you got your pre-trip, you got your driving tests, and then you got your pre-trip. Oh, air brake test, right? So those that know about all these different tests, it's really to pass the test, right? So CDL school is not to teach you how to be a CDL truck driver, right? That's the biggest misconception. So when you get your CDL, oh yeah, I drove a truck. Yeah, I drove it 4 blocks down, and I drove it for an hour. All right, yeah, I know how to drive a truck. No, you don't know how to drive a truck, and there's nothing wrong with that. You feel me? There's nothing wrong with understanding where you at and where you need to be, right? Because the only way you know how to drive a truck is it's only through experience. This is one of the only few occupations where soon as you get your certification, they don't, you're not really, on paper, you're able to drive a CDL truck legally, but experience comes in time, right? So after I got my CDL and I was able to work alongside getting my CDL, I didn't have to quit my job. Once you have your CDL and you have your job, now you got leverage. Now you get to pick and choose. All right, do I want to go local? Do I want to go over the road? I know a lot of local jobs require a year experience, but some of them don't, especially like the food service industries, like, Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, Autumn, local jobs and stuff like that. Now it's physical. It's physical. You're going to have to do manual labor. You're not going to do just regular driving, but you want your foot in the door, you want some good experience, and you want a nice, comfortable landing after you get your CDL. That's the way to go about it. I didn't make that decision. I chose to go dedicated / regional, right? Because I'm on a Family Dollar account. So I went online. I went to the specific mega carrier. I seen that they had an opening for this specific position or whatever. I had to get my doubles and triples endorsement. So I went down to the DMV, and I was like, why not? Let's just get all the endorsements. So I got my hazmat, I got my tankers, and I got my doubles and triples. That's another thing when you're coming into this industry. Make sure you get all your endorsements. Just get it out the way. Don't come in here and, I'm going to get in a year or two. Let me get my experience up. Just get it out the way, so that way, soon as you have your experience, you can just jump right into whatever opens up, and you don't have to sit up there and worry about, when I'm going to go to the DMV, when I'm going to study for the test. Now I got to get my fingerprints. Now I got to take the ELD test for the hazmat test, just to be able to take the hazmat test for the DMV. You ain't got to, just get all that out the way. Get all the hard stuff out the way, right? So they said, all right, we're going to hire you on. It's a 3-week orientation. And I had to go to the specific city. And because I live close enough, they was like, hey, all right, we're going to go ahead. We're going to rent you out a rental, right? So got a rental car. I drove, however, I think it was probably about 4 hours to get out there, right? 4.5 hours. Got out there, turned the rental over at the airport, and then I caught an Uber over to the hotel, where the following day, everybody every morning you had to wake up and you had to be at the bus, because there's a bus that takes you to the terminal where you train at for the first 2 weeks. Every morning, 5:30, 5:45 in the morning. Now, if you're not a morning person, you about to become one, because if that bus leaves and you don't have no ride share or anything like that, because the class starts at 6:30, they could kick you out the class, right? Now, here's the tricky part about this. When I got out there, they were like, hey, all right, here's the orientation, but it's still an evaluation, meaning that it's still an interview process. Just because you got your CDL and you're legally able to operate, this kind of commercial vehicle, does not automatically distinguish that your position and your this occupation is secured, right? So here you are, you gave up your livelihood, you most likely quit your job, uprooted your whole life, went over to this school, and now they still saying, hey, well, we're going to train you, but we're not going to hold your hand. You got about 7 days. That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, on top of Monday and Tuesday, after all these evaluations. So there's assessments, there's skills tests, there's driving tests, there's all these tests, and you got to prove to us in 7 days that you're able to operate our equipment, or it's only going to be one or two outcomes. We're going to reevaluate, have a conversation, and extend you one more week, or you're not going to be or you probably didn't get enough good training from your CDL school, and we're just going to have to send you home, right? So think about that. You uprooted your whole life thinking that you had a secure occupation, and now they send you home, and now you worse off than when you left, right? Crazy, right? So really, so when you get there, got to take your hair follicle test, got to take your urinal test or your urine test, and once you get past those and the evaluation, your third week, which you think would be the easiest week, because all the evaluation is pretty much out the way, right? So you're in a hotel, you got a roommate, you feel me? Now they're gonna coordinate you towards where they have a trainer, right? So you're gonna be 1 week with the trainer. When you're with this trainer, you're gonna be in a sleeper like this, and you gotta drive for 1 week. 1 week, and the trainer is evaluating everything, right? Now it depends on what kind of trainer you got. So it's gonna be pre-trip air brakes, how you park, and how you drive. So it's taking everything, and you're actually on the job. You're on the job, and for those 5 days, you're around this person pretty much the entire time, right? Because you're sleeping in the truck, you're driving in the truck, everywhere you look, this person is there. And it's going to be a very long week for you, right? So then they're going to give you an evaluation to let them know, hey, all right, this person is good enough. This person is good enough, and we're going to go ahead and sign in his own truck. Now, here's the kicker right here, right? It's paid training, but you're only making $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, $10 an hour the entire 3 weeks. So you better know how to save. You better know how to manage your money right. Because if you somewhere where nobody can get to you and you broke, oh yeah. It's gonna be a long set of training days, long set of training weeks, right? So after you get past that, then finally you get to go out on the road by yourself, right? Woo, I'm free now. Yeah, but this time everything is on you now. And as crazy as that sounds, you think that would be a good thing. Everything is on you now. So that means if these people ain't available, your trainers and stuff like that ain't available, you feel me? Hey, I mean, hopefully you prepared, which comes to my next point. Preparation is everything in this industry, especially if you over the road. That means headphones, cell phone, food, water, clothes, essentials, hygienic stuff. Anything you gotta create this environment as your home. This is your second home, right? This is your hotel. That means you gotta have amenities, you gotta have survival stuff, you gotta have noodles, you gotta have crackers, you gotta have anything, water, lots of water, probably a case of water, you feel me? Preparation is everything in this industry just because it's unpredictable, right? It's unpredictable. You could be having a good week, a bad week, and it's so sporadic. It's not like a regular 9 to 5 where it's like, oh, I'm gonna punch in at 9 and I'm gonna clock out at 5 and I get to go home. Like, no, it's none of that. It's some days you gotta get up at 4 in the morning. Sometimes you gotta get up at 6 at night. It just depends on where you're at, how many miles you're running, where you're coming from, where you're going to, and where you're going to next. And then while all this is going on, everything that used to surround you is adjusting. Your whole world, your whole network is now recalibrating itself to your lifestyle. Why? Why is that happening? Because now everybody got to reconnect with you different. You're not in the present anymore. Now everything is over the phone. You feel me? Everything is over the phone. Everything is over the phone. So long distance, relationships and things of that sort, it brings a strain. You feel me? And if you ain't got a great support system that's able to accommodate that, you could lose people in this industry. You feel me? It's a very tough, taxing, occupation and things of that sort, right? So here we go. Now I'm about to tell y'all everything that I've experienced actually being in this truck for about 2 months. You feel me? 2 months being dolo, and then that first month was just nothing but training, right? So first month, actually first day, first week, I'm driving towards my first load. I'm driving through, I think I'm on the 93. If y'all are familiar with going from Utah, the bottom of Utah, back into southern Nevada, going into northern Nevada, a lot of dead zones, a lot of like where you can't get a signal, right? And that's another thing I would advise. If you're on the West Coast and you're driving through mountains and things of that sort, T-Mobile, Boost Mobile, Metro, none of it's gonna work. You gotta either get Verizon or AT&T, something that's gonna accommodate being in the mountains and things of that sort. Lots of drop calls. Lots of drop calls. Lots of you'll be on the phone and you go through some mountains and you don't hear nothing, you don't see nothing for the next, who knows? It could be 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, just nothingness, right? So really have to have a great mental fortitude. You have to be able to plan ahead. Gotta be able to plan ahead. This is why you have to be able to plan ahead. And why I say preparation is everything in this industry is because they talk about pre-tripping. Pre-tripping, not pre-tripping, but trip planning. Trip planning is where you sitting up there and you have a destination. You have the location where you're at. You have the destination where you want to be at. And then there's everything in between that, right? So say if you have a 1,200 mile run, right? 1,200 mile run going one direction. Well, guess what? It's not legal to drive 1,200 miles straight, in one day or whatever, one setting. So eventually you're going to have to stop somewhere in between there. So you're going to have to figure out where the truck stops are at. Now, if you got the Flying J app, you feel me? There's a lot of truck stops. Now, there's multiple different truck stops outside of Flying J. You feel me? There's Loves. There's another one called 19. And there's a couple of third-party truck stops where you can stop at. But when you pulling up to the truck stop, or you have to see all the truck stops in between, and then there's clocks, right? Now, this is where you're going to have to become a mathematician with these clocks. And I know some of y'all might just click off the video just because you're about to hear this big math equation. All right, so I'm trying to simplify this as easy as I can. So you got the shortest clock, which is your 8-hour clock. Your 8-hour clock is 8 hours is the longest duration of time you can drive before you have to have a mandatory 30-minute break, right? Then there's the second shortest clock, which is the 10-hour reset. That means on a 14-hour day, within a 14-hour day, in order to work an additional up to another 14 hours, you have to take a 10-hour break in between in order to reset your 14-hour clock. So that's the second one, right? The third shortest time is your 11-hour clock. So remember I told you that your 8-hour clock is the longest duration of time you can drive straight in one setting before you got to take a 30-minute break. Well, the 11-hour clock is the amount of time you can drive in general, whether you're taking breaks or not, within a 14-hour period. So after that, then you got your 14-hour clock. Your 14-hour clock is rather you driving or on duty, which would mean like hooking, unhooking, fueling, all the little miscellaneous things you would have to do, you feel me, to all the things in between, whether you taking breaks or not. As soon as your day starts, that clock is running, right? As soon as your day starts, that clock is running. And 14 hours is the most you can work in a day. Now, the biggest clock is your 70-hour clock. Now, I know all those different clocks are confusing, but the 70-hour clock is going to put everything in perspective. So, you only can work, as far as the DOT regulated time, I think in an 8-day period, is you can work up to 70 hours, right? 70 hours in a 8-day period. And then there's a I forgot. I skipped one. Truck drivers, y'all know. All right, so before we get to the 70-hour clock, there's the 34-hour clock, which is the 34-hour reset. In order to get another 70 hours of being able to work DOT time, you have to take a 34-hour reset in between your 70 hours, right? So, let's say, for example, you worked 56 hours in 8 days. And let's say, in order to work another 65 hours, if you worked any of those 50-some hours was towards the end of that week, you would have to have pretty much a day and a half reset of time before that clock doesn't bleed into over or doesn't carry over into the other clock, right? So all this math is where your trip planning is essential, right? Because if you drive too far, you might run out of time. DOT violation. If you drive too short and cut off your night early, that might extend the amount of time you would have to drive the following day. So you have to be able to telegraph how are you going to get from A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like, especially if you're one of those people that have a dedicated route and your whole week is planned out, right? Because of the domino effect. If you're late to one thing, then you're gonna have to make up time to be able to catch up to the next thing, and it's really it's a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess. And that's why I say preparation is paramount in this industry, just because, so much can go wrong if not calculated right. Right? And so that's just one side of it, right? One side of trip planning. The other side of it is what specific truck stops are you going to? If you got the Pilot app, you can look up specific truck stops, right? You can look up specific truck stops and you get shower credit. If you want to take a shower, get clean, stuff like that, you feel me? You can go ahead and get shower credits every time you fuel up your truck over 50 gallons. Get you a free shower credit. Showers are usually $18, but you can be able to shower for free. Feel me? If you're running the miles like that, just put it to you like that, right? So there's one thing. Another thing is that it tells you how much parking it is. So it could be, if you look up a specific truck stop and has over 200 parking spots, you're gonna find parking. If you look up a truck stop and it has 50, right, 50 parking spots, it may be difficult, especially if you're looking up the reserve parking, which is paid parking. It's an indicator of how many parking spots there is. So if the truck stop only has 50 parking spots, but then the reserve parking has 14 reserve parking spots and 8 out of those 14 are already reserved and there's only 6 left over, it might be a slight chance that there's no parking and you might have to pay for parking. Parking is also probably like $18, I think, right? So this is all about trip planning, and this is it's stress. I mean, you would think that this industry is all about driving, right? Which you do majority of your time doing just that. But the mental part of it is where you start to understand that this industry is more than just driving. I feel like driving is the least thing you have to think about, as stressful as it is, right? Cognitively, it's not a lot you got to process. It's more reactionary. If you keep your following distance, you understand how to use your mirrors, understand how to create space, knowing how to go through turns and, hills and downgrades, and know how to drive through inclement weather and things of that sort. It's the most dangerous part of your drive for sure, but it's not so cognitive. You feel me? Like it's more so reactionary, more so like subconscious, if you will. Right? You can't pay attention to every little minor detail. Now, when you first are driving, yes, you're gonna notice everything. You're gonna be understanding like, okay, is my trailer, is it off tracking into the other lane, things of that sort. Am I gonna be able to make certain turns without hitting something? You feel me? Am I gonna be able to park right? But the more you do it, the less you gotta think about it. Driving at first becomes the hardest part of this, right? But as time goes on and you start to be more accustomed to the way, the nature of how this truck operates down the road, it just becomes like driving a car. I'm just be honest with y'all. I'm not trying to downplay it, you feel me? There are certain things where this is a skill. This is a skill. So I'm not going to sit up there and say anybody can do this, because I don't think that's the case. But I will say that this is a very, very tough, industry. It's a very tough industry only due to the fact that there's so much other things that surrounds the driving part that you begin to understand that the driving part isn't even the most uh part you use your mind with. You feel me? Trip planning, paperwork, um, pre-trips, knowing how to get in your logs, DVIRs, you know, making sure you got locks and seals and it's so and pre-trip and making sure the maintenance on the vehicle is up to date and making sure that you just on top of so much that you're really not really thinking about the driving. The driving is you really look at it as the easy part. I'm gonna keep it 100 though. That's the thing you do the most. That's the easy part. You think, oh, driving this truck. The real skill is the things that surround this skill, right? I don't think you're getting paid to drive, right? You're getting paid to drive, but you're getting paid to, do the things that facilitate the drive. And it's tough. It's tough on the body. It's tough on the mind. I said in previous videos, like your health, your mental health. You feel me? Like there's just certain things that I could tell y'all. You feel